The dog wouldn't stop. 3 nights in a row. Same tree, same time, same sound. Not barking like he'd seen a squirrel, barking like he'd seen something wrong. Tom tried pulling him back inside. The dog refused to move. He just stood there, frozen, staring up at that oak tree at the edge of the yard. His paws were shaking. Tom had lived on this property for 11 years. He knew every inch of it, every tree, every sound, every shadow, but he had never seen his dog act like this. So on the 4th night, he grabbed his flashlight. He walked toward the tree, and he pointed the beam straight at the hollow in the trunk. There was something inside, something that shouldn't have been there, something that had clearly been there for a very long time. But what they pulled out of that tree, no one in that town was ready for. If you've never subscribed, do it right now, because once this story is over, you're going to wish you hadn't watched it alone. Tom's flashlight beam hit the hollow of the oak tree, and he stopped walking. There was a bundle inside, wrapped in something dark, something old, something that looked like it had been placed there, deliberately. He didn't touch it. Not yet. Tom was a quiet man, retired, kept to himself mostly. He'd bought this land from an old estate sale back in 2013. The previous owner had passed with no family, no records, no history handed over, just the keys and a handshake from the county clerk. He'd never thought much about that, until now. The bundle was roughly the size of a shoebox, wrapped in what looked like burlap, tied with thin rope that had gone almost black with age. Whatever was inside, it had weight to it. His dog, Rex, was still barking, but now he'd backed away from the tree. Dogs don't usually retreat from things they've already found. Tom pulled out his phone and turned on the camera. He wanted a record of this. He didn't know why. He just felt like he should. He reached a hand into the hollow. His fingers touched the burlap. It was stiff, ice cold, and slightly damp, like something had been breathing near it. He pulled it out slowly, set it on the ground, crouched down, and looked closer. That's when he noticed the rope wasn't just tied. It was knotted, over and over again, like whoever wrapped this didn't want it opened, like they were afraid of what was inside. Tom didn't open it that night. He carried it inside, set it on the kitchen table, and just stared at it. Rex wouldn't come inside. That alone kept Tom awake until 3 a.m. The next morning, he called his neighbor, an old man named Walter, who'd lived on the adjoining property for over 30 years. Walter had known the previous owner personally. When Tom described the bundle, Walter went quiet. Not the kind of quiet where someone is thinking, the kind where someone already knows. Walter came over within the hour. He stood over the bundle on the table. He didn't touch it. He just looked at it for a long moment and said, "Where exactly was the tree?" Tom pointed toward the back fence line. Walter's jaw tightened. He took one step back from the table. He told Tom that the previous owner, an old man named Elias, had stopped letting anyone near that tree sometime around 1987. No explanation. He just fenced it off one day and never spoke about it again. 30 years of silence around a single tree. Tom grabbed a knife from the counter. Slowly, he began cutting through the rope, knot by knot. Walter stood with his arms crossed, watching but not helping. The burlap fell open. Inside was a tin box, rusted, sealed shut, and engraved on the lid. Just 2 words. "Don't open." Walter exhaled slowly. He said, "Tom, I think you need to call someone before you go any further." Tom looked up at him. "Call who?" Walter didn't answer. He just looked back at the box, and that's when they both heard it. A sound, coming from inside the tin. It was faint. A dry, hollow rattling, like something small shifting inside metal. Tom pulled his hand back instinctively. Walter took another step toward the door. They stood there in complete silence for nearly a minute. Neither man moved. Tom told himself it was just air pressure. Old sealed containers do that sometimes. They settle, they shift. He almost believed it. Then it happened again, louder this time. Walter picked up his phone and called someone. He turned away so Tom couldn't hear the conversation. When he hung up, his face had changed completely. He told Tom that years ago, Around 1989, a boy from the neighboring town had gone missing, 9 years old, never found. The investigation had gone cold within 2 years, but the last confirmed sighting was on the road running directly behind Tom's property. Tom felt the room tilt slightly. He looked at the tin box, then back at Walter. "You don't think?" Walter cut him off. "I don't know what I think. That's why I made the call." 40 minutes later, 2 sheriff's deputies pulled into the driveway. They didn't come alone. There was a third vehicle behind them, unmarked, dark plates. The man who stepped out of it wasn't in uniform. He was carrying a small case. He looked at the house first, then at the tree line in the distance, like he'd been to this property before. He walked straight past Tom without introduction, went directly to the kitchen table, looked down at the tin box, and quietly said, "We've been looking for this for 16 years. Tom's stomach dropped. 16 years. The man reached into his case, put on a pair of gloves, and very, very carefully began to open the lid. The lid didn't open easily. Years of rust and pressure had sealed it almost permanently. The man worked slowly, deliberately, like he'd done this before. The room was completely silent. Even Rex had stopped barking outside. The lid came loose with a dull, pressurized click. The man paused, looked inside, said nothing. One of the deputies leaned forward, then straightened up immediately, his face unreadable. Tom asked what was in it. Nobody answered him. The man in plain clothes reached inside with 2 gloved fingers. He pulled out a small notebook, brown with age, water damaged along the edges. The cover had initials on it, hand pressed into the leather. E.H., Elias's initials. Beneath the notebook were photographs, old ones, developed film. The man flipped through them without showing Tom, but Tom caught one image before the man turned away. It was the tree, his tree, photographed at night, and standing next to it, a figure. The notebook, when carefully opened to the first page, had a single line written in shaky handwriting. "I saw what happened. I couldn't tell anyone. God forgive me." Tom felt his legs go weak. He sat down without meaning to. The man in plain clothes closed the notebook gently. He looked at Tom for the first time with something close to sympathy. He explained that Elias hadn't been responsible for what happened to the boy, but he had witnessed it, and he had spent the rest of his life too afraid to speak. The tree wasn't where something was hidden. The tree was where Elias came every night to ask for forgiveness. And the box wasn't meant to be a secret. It was meant to be a confession, left for whoever was brave enough to finally find it. The photographs were handed over to investigators that same afternoon. By evening, 2 detectives from the cold case unit had arrived. The notebook contained 12 pages. 12 pages of everything Elias had seen that night in 1989. Names, descriptions, a location, written in the trembling handwriting of a man who carried something unbearable for decades. Within 72 hours, an arrest was made. The person named in that notebook was still alive, still living less than 40 miles away. Tom didn't sleep for 3 days. The boy's father, now in his late 60s, was contacted by authorities before anything went public. When he was told what had been found inside that tree, he broke down completely. He had never stopped looking, not once, not in 35 years. Walter told Tom something afterward that stayed with him. He said Elias, in his final years, had become obsessed with that tree, watering it, sitting beside it. Neighbors thought he'd simply gone strange with old age. Nobody knew he was tending to the only confession he'd ever made. Tom still lives on that property. He hasn't cut the tree down. He says he won't. And Rex, the dog who started all of this, still walks to the edge of the yard sometimes, sits near that oak, and just watches it quietly, like he always knew, like he was waiting for someone to finally listen. Some secrets don't stay buried forever. Sometimes they find the one person stubborn enough or brave enough to stop ignoring the dog barking at midnight. If this story kept you watching till the very end, hit that subscribe button right now. New discoveries, real stories, every single week. You never know what's waiting to be found.